Today, September 24th, 2024, would have been Jim Henson's 88th birthday. And it's surreal that it's been so long since he suddenly and tragically died in 1990 that, like, you know, he 88. He might have just died naturally of old age by now. It's crazy. But he would have been 88 today, and you know, we frequently get a lot of different, you know, people, companies, accounts, and whatnot, kind of celebrating his life when his birthday comes around. But this year, I do not know why, but they decided to do something extra special. So, a little history lesson. Cannot even tell you how much dopamine has just flooded my brain that I'm about to launch into a history lesson about the Muppets. This is great. 1987 saw the release of Muppet Family Christmas. Now, I want to say right now, before we continue with this video, if you are maybe like a budding Muppet fan, you know, you've been thinking about getting into the Muppet scene, the fandom, but you don't already know what Muppet Family Christmas is, you should probably stop watching this and just go watch it. Because that production, we're going into spoiler territory now, it's mind-blowing. It's the Avengers of the Muppets. It's a Christmas special, and we've had other Muppet Christmas specials. You've got Muppet Christmas Carol. This is, you know, it's a little more of a humble production. It was a TV special. You know, it wasn't like a big theatrical movie or anything. But this Christmas special brought together Muppets, Sesame Street, and Fraggle Rock, all in one place. Blew my mind. Absolutely blew my mind. It's also just an incredibly good special. It's definitely, Muppet Christmas Carol is just a masterpiece of cinema, so it's hard to compare it to that, but like, it is also just a perfect Christmas thing. And to my knowledge, that is the only time in a real official, like, full production that we have gotten Muppets, Fraggle Rock, and Sesame Street all in one place. Because at that time, all of these properties were being produced by Jim Henson, by Jim Henson Company. I mean, Sesame Street has kind of always been its own separate thing. They just used Jim Henson characters. He didn't actually, like, own the show or anything. But they were closely related enough that they were able to do a lot of stuff together. I mean, you know, Kermit did a bunch of stuff on Sesame Street early on. And so they've always kind of been a separate thing, and they kind of went their separate ways from the Muppets when the Muppets in 2004 were sold off from the Jim Henson Company to Disney, which was a thing that happened, and I won't go into the results of that acquisition today. But basically, at that point, the Jim Henson family of characters, they really split. Now the Muppets and Sesame Street and Fraggle Rock and all other Jim Henson Company IPs were now, like, really very separate things. Now, the people working on these properties all know each other. You know, I'm pretty sure they use some of the same builders for basically all of these puppets. They're all still sort of, like, more or less a family. But, like, legally speaking, they are all distinct properties, and they don't really do anything together. You don't get Kermit on Sesame Street anymore. It's not a thing. And I don't know if that has something to do with just, like, the industry itself. It almost feels like this kind of crossover stuff happened a lot more, like, when I was a kid. You get all these, like, Saturday morning crossovers, and I don't know, now, is it, like, more difficult, everything with copyright and just legally things have gotten more and more complicated? I'm really not sure. But today, the 88th birthday of Jim Henson, they decided to make Muppet history again. I almost screamed. I almost screamed when I saw this. For whatever reason, I don't know who, like, started it. I don't know who got the ball rolling. I don't know who was in charge of production. But we got it. We got it again. It's just a little video. It's not a whole special. It's not Muppet Family Christmas 2. But we got a little video commemorating the birthday of Jim Henson. And this video has Kermit Oscar, and Gobo. All three Muppet families together again for the first time in decades. And I cannot even tell you how deeply this just these images, how deeply this affects me in my deepest, heartiest heart parts of me. It's so nice. It's so lovely, and it is surreal for sure. It's a little bit surreal because of course all of these are new performers. All of these, like none of these performers were the original performers for these characters. So it is a very new thing. It's a very modern Muppet family kind of thing, seeing this new version of these old characters. You know, you have Matt Vogel's Kermit, who I will defend to my death. No Matt Vogel slander in the comments. I will block you. Nuts, non-negotiable. So you have Matt Vogel's Kermit, you've got Eric Jacobson's Oscar the Grouch, and he's always been flawless. Absolutely flawless. His Oscar is amazing. It's just perfect. And then John Tartaglia's Gobo. He's also really exceptionally good as Gobo. John Tartaglia, he gets Fraggle Rock. He's one of the other people in the world I can count among the Fraggle Rock scholars. I like to say I may be in that camp. I am pretty darn well versed on Fraggle Rock lore, but whatever, that's beside the point. John Tartaglia, he's the Fraggle Rock guy now. He's been show running the recent show reboot. His performance as Gobo is really amazing. I've met all three of these people too, which is really cool. They're all amazing guys, and they just got together to do this really cute little thing. Kermit is saying that he's just been thinking about creativity, and I think that's really cool because that's what Jim Henson was. He was creativity incarnate. And that's one reason I look up to him. I mean, literally out of every figure throughout history, I don't admire anyone. I don't think any human being who's ever existed more than I admire the life and work of Jim Henson. You know, especially if you read Jim Henson, the biography. Like, if you are interested in any of this, you have to read that. It's really incredible. And so yeah, it was cool. Kermit's talking about creativity, and there's some jokes about radishes and Fraggle stuff in there, and then Oscar. But the fact that, we're getting into the lore now, the fact that Gobo came out of Oscar's trash can, because Oscar's trash can for a long time has been established as this kind of like weird like hammer space kind of thing where like he goes down into his trash can, but he's got like a bunch of stuff down there. He's got like a pet elephant, and then Elmo's Adventures in Grouchland establishes that this trash can leads to other worlds, including Grouchland itself. Oscar has a portal to Grouchland, and that's where he comes from. So his trash can is like a Doctor Who kind of thing. And then this, of course, probably not canon, but suggests that Gobo reached this world through Oscar's trash can, because Fraggles also travel between dimensions using holes in their caves. It's all in Fraggle Rock. Again, I could tell you about all the lore of the whole thing, but basically Fraggles travel to and from Fraggle Rock into our world, which they call outer space, and then of course the Gorg's Garden, possibly some other worlds too, using Fraggle holes, and Fraggle holes are magic and they can move, so I guess it makes sense that a Fraggle hole could lead to Oscar's trash can. But you know, getting that confirmation, that's good. Even in this little thing, it's like a minute or two long. You got some real great Muppet Grouch Fraggle lore in here. I love it. Anyway, talking about Muppets today. I'm so happy. I gotta do this more often. So yeah, it's a cute little thing. And then, you know, at the end, Oscar even when everyone leaves, he puts a bouquet for Jim on the, come on, you're gonna make me cry just talking about it here. Now, real quick, there are two additional individual things I would like to point out. First is a slight nitpick. Gobo turns to Oscar when he pops up out of his can and says, "That's the silliest creature I've ever seen." Well, I have a problem with that. A silly creature is what they call humans. And the thing about Oscar is there are multiple creatures in Fraggle Rock that actually look remarkably similar to Oscar. So it's a little bit hard for me to believe that Gobo would find him to be that silly. At the same time, it's a creature that looks like that, but he's in outer space, so therefore technically they would refer to him as a silly creature. So is it because he's not a human? Never mind. Okay, just forget I said that one. No, and then really it's just that last shot at the very, very end. It took me a while to like really recognize it, that they had left all of the Kermit enters at the beginning holding a newspaper, which is from like a Muppet newspaper. New York City is on there. And then, and Gobo has his radishes, and then Oscar produces his bouquet of trash. And then at the very end, they all leave their items on the bench. And Kermit leaves his newspaper, Gobo leaves his radishes, Oscar leaves his. So you see this like little trinket kind of visual representation of all three of them coming together. It's really lovely. It's really lovely. I gotta stop. I don't know. It's fantastic and it's surreal. And there's that little part of me that's like, ooh, now they've opened the door for crossovers again. Does this mean that we're gonna really get some new? I don't think so. Probably not. I don't think they really have much reason to do a lot of crossover stuff. I mean, all these properties, they kind of have like different goals, like Disney doesn't really know what to do with the Muppets, and then Fraggle Rock and Sesame Street are sort of the same thing. They're kids shows, but they're kind of different. I don't know. There's that like tiny part of me. Like, I'm not going to get my hopes up, but it's like, what if they had all these characters together because they were filming some sort of crossover thing, and they did this kind of like as a little, almost as an afterthought, so they could put something on social media. Possible? Technically. Probably not, though. It probably really was just a cute little thing for Jim Henson's birthday, because people like to do special things for Jim Henson's birthday, because he was, to say that he was a special guy is a dramatic understatement. It's crazy. The guy's legacy that he left behind was so huge. We are still living in the wake of Jim Henson. Like the wake of all of the things that he's done and started. People are still feeling it. Entire organizations are still building upon the work that he started all those years ago. The Muppets themselves are now celebrating their 70th anniversary. Yeah, you heard me right. 70 years of Muppets. And it's just crazy. It's just anybody you meet who met Jim. I've seen this in person. I've gone to like a couple events at the Jim Henson Company, and they had these like commemorative events for a few different performers and whatever. That's where I met some of the performers, and nobody can stop talking, either in person or in interviews or whatever. Even all these years later, no one can ever stop talking about Jim Henson and how amazing he was and how much he touched their lives. And that's why you still get this stuff. That's why you still get people until the end of time just commemorating Jim Henson, because he was that amazing of a person. And before we go, speaking of Jim Henson, we actually have two Jim Henson related media things that have been released recently on Disney Plus. They did Jim Henson Idea Man, which is a documentary about him. So that's exciting. I have not seen it yet, but I hear it is pretty good. I do need to get around to seeing it one of these days. I don't know how much info it has that's not already in the biography. I don't know. Maybe there's new stuff in there. Who knows? But that's really cool. And then they just did a movie about the early days of Saturday Night Live. And in the very first season of SNL, they had Jim Henson do a thing called The Land of Gorch. And it's like this weird thing, and they tried to do like this adult Muppet thing, but they were like weird aliens, and apparently there was a lot of like conflict. Apparently the writers of SNL hated it. They hated it so much. So in this movie about SNL, apparently Jim Henson is in it and him and his characters are like just made fun of. They're just like the butt of all of these jokes, which is, I don't know, it's funny. It's like almost silly to have Jim Henson be the butt of a joke, but then it also is kind of representative of the attitude around them at the time, how all of the cast and crew of SNL just hated that they were forcing in these Muppet segments. It's a really weird part of Muppet history. So that's it. That's the end of this video on Muppets. I will try to do more videos on Muppets, because I could talk about just Muppets. I could talk about just Fraggle Rock. Hours and hours. Easy. Easy peasy. I need to just do a stream one of these days where I do literally nothing but just blab. Just blab about Fraggle Rock. Just talk about it, because it's a big thing for me. I mean, honestly, after all these years of doing YouTube and talking about Muppets so little on YouTube, like it's starting to wear me down. I'm getting like physical symptoms here. I feel like this, my Muppet opinions, they need to get out of me. They're absolutely killing me. Stay tuned for the 3.5 hour retrospective on Muppet Family Christmas coming next year.